How you doing, wrestling fans? John Arezzi here for another edition of Pro Wrestling Spotlight Live. I am back in Tennessee, and sorry we didn't have a show last week, but I was in the middle of some travel. I had delayed my trip a couple of days after seeing what happened in the nation's capital. So I stayed in New York until Saturday morning and then left and came back here. So I am back in Tennessee. We have a pretty cool show lined up for you today. We'll be bringing on Alex Robertson from SlamWrestling.net with some of the latest news in just a little bit. But there are a couple of different milestones this week that I want to touch upon and reminisce about a little bit. One of which was the loss of one of the pioneers in wrestling managing, a guy by the name of Bobby Davis, who was probably known for his being the manager for Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. But he was one of the first managers that just knew how to bring it promo-wise, his look, his attitude, his arrogance. He managed quite a few individuals in the 60s and 70s. I think one of the, if not the very first time I ever watched pro wrestling, from Washington, D.C. It was a match that was scheduled to be a tag team with Bruno Sammartino and his cousin Antonio Pugliese against Dr. Jerry Graham and someone else. And Bobby Davis was there as the manager. Bruno wasn't there. His flight was delayed, as announcer Ray Morgan said. And then Pugliese was getting pummeled, and then Bruno ran into the ring with suitcases, knocked Graham on the head with one of them. Davis was in the middle of it. So right from the start, very first time I watched wrestling, Bobby Davis was a figure who was just, you couldn't take your eyes off of him, and he was just a great heel manager and articulate and a great businessman. So what we're going to do today is I pulled a couple of early promos of Bobby Davis that I'm going to play for you in a short bit. But I unearthed an interview that I did with Bobby Davis, and this here's the original cassette. It's right here from the Pro Wrestling Spotlight radio show from July 11th, 1992. This was just a little after Buddy Rogers' passing. And when Buddy passed, I wanted to get Bobby Davis's thoughts because they were just so close all their lives. So we will be showing that as well, giving that a listen. And then January 18th, 1971, it's going to be 50 years on Monday that Bruno Sammartino lost the heavyweight championship of the world to the Russian bear Ivan Koloff. And I have found some footage of that match where no footage exists except for what I'm going to show you today. And it was a guy up in New England named Rocky Raymond who used to film the matches like I did at the Garden. But he captured Bruno losing the title to Koloff. And it's a really very rare piece of footage to honor Bruno Sammartino. Take a look at this little thing. I got this on, I went on WWE's website to look for a Bruno t-shirt, and I bought one a while ago, and it wasn't there anymore. So in the search engine, this little statue of Bruno came up. It was really nice, very solid. $10 at the WWE.com. You're not going to find me plugging them too often, but anyway, we are here to talk wrestling with you, and I'm going to play some really cool stuff for you. We're waiting for Don Laible. Hopefully Donnie's going to join us. He said he was going to, but we'll have to wait and see. Until Donnie joins us, what we're going to do right now is we're going to bring on Alex Robertson. And first, I want to make sure that this picture is not up now. So let's bring Alex in, and there she is. Alex, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, John?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little mellow today. You know, I'm getting a little cabin fever. I've been in the house all week.
Yeah, tell me about it. I mean, here we have a curfew now.
You do?
You're in Quebec. Yeah, we have an 8 p.m. curfew that runs till 5 a.m. So we can't be outside of our home unless you are part of the essential service group. You can't go out of your home between those hours. And if you do have to, for work purposes, you have to show a letter to be able to be outside. And if you are outside and you don't have a letter because you're not supposed to be, you're going to get fined.
Wow.
Yeah.
Heavy duty.
They're really cracking down here. Our cases have dropped slightly and whatnot, but I think they're really trying to make all the effort to bring the cases down completely, almost to where they were in the summer, and then hopefully get rid of them. So this is our government's response to keeping everything under control.
Wow. Extreme measures, but we're in extreme times. Having the cabin fever, I mean, when I'm in New York, at least I have, my nephew to hang out with, and my sister, but now I'm back in Tennessee. It's just kind of getting to me now that I just want things to get back to normal if we can. But anyway, I mean, let's not get everybody depressed out there.
Yeah.
Let's hear what's going on in the current day with the news.
Right. So the beginning of the week, more or less, we did hear that Drew McIntyre was diagnosed with COVID-19, which means that he will not be appearing at the Royal Rumble, I'm pretty sure anyway, which is kind of, it's disappointing because A, he is a title holder, and B, he was supposed to go head to head with Goldberg, as we saw at Legends Night 2 weeks ago. And that was a pretty big night for the WWE, for Raw anyway, because they pulled some pretty big ratings numbers. They hit just over 2 million, which was more than they have been pulling in a really long time.
Yeah.
I think it was partially due to the fact that they did bring all of those bigger names back. So now that he won't be appearing at this the next Royal Rumble, I don't know what's going to happen. I know that this week, he did make a statement on Raw saying that he's not showing any symptoms, so he's not really, really sick, but he wanted to address the situation nonetheless. And I did take a look at the ratings from this week, and they did drop significantly. They were at just over 1 million this week. So that's a pretty big drop in ratings, which is not looking good, again, coming up to a pay-per-view. And the Royal Rumble is one of everybody's favorite pay-per-views. I don't know anybody who says that it's a bad pay-per-view. So we'll have to wait and see what comes of that, for sure. Yeah,
I love the Royal Rumble, and it's hard to envision it in this format that we're going to see. And that was big news on Drew getting COVID, but at least they addressed it, which previously they had not really addressed any of their COVID issues. But for Drew coming out and saying what he said, I have to give him a lot of credit and the organization for letting people know what really was going on.
Definitely. And another thing that I know that you're not a very big fan of is the whole fire situation, if you will, between Randy Orton and Alexa Bliss, which again continued this week, except roles were reversed. Alexa Bliss came out and shot some fire against Randy Orton. So is that what we're going to keep seeing every week on Monday?
I actually liked her. I mean, that looked really cool. I mean, when she shot him in the face with, I mean, that was kind of a cool effect. And I mean, I remember back in the day when the Sheik would throw fire, and it was, it was like, that was part of his deal. And of course, Eddie Gilbert learned to do that as well. But I mean, but dousing somebody and setting them ablaze is a little extreme for me at this point. But seeing Alexa Bliss give him what he deserved, and it looks just so cool. She like shot him right in the face with it, and it was I thought it was cool.
I mean, I did too, and I saw the freeze frame all over social media this week, and it looked pretty cool. So
it did.
And it's if they're going to continue the storyline, let's go with that, right?
Yes, fire guns.
Right. And you were talking about, the fact that the WWE is addressing some of the COVID issues, which they haven't really been doing in the past. One of the things that they haven't really addressed over the last couple months, and I know that you and I have talked about it, are these third-party sites that these superstars are told they're not allowed to use. So I did a little research this week, and I saw that some of the superstars are making a lot of money on these third-party sites that I don't know if the WWE was authorizing them or not, but just to give you an example, Lana, who we know had been appearing on television the last little while before she was pulled from the last card, the pay-per-view card, she makes on her third-party sites over $600K.
Huh?
And Mandy Rose makes just under 500K on third-party sites.
That's
So,
incredible.
I mean, yeah. So we're talking about Cameo, we're talking about Twitch, Patreon, you name it. The money that these stars are making on third-party sites are insane. So I'm not saying, it's justifiable for Vince McMahon telling them that they cannot use it, but just to put it in perspective, that's the kind of money that some of these superstars are pulling. So of course, if you're being told that you can't use these third-party sites as a superstar, I think I'd be upset too.
Oh, absolutely. It's a major source of revenue for them. And that's big. That's big money. That's not chump change. That's a lot of dough.
Oh, for sure. So, I mean, there hasn't really been much released about it. I mean, if some of these superstars like Mandy and Lana, and I know there are still some superstars on Cameo, if they're still using it, they must have gotten authorization to do so. So I don't know that they've actually made the decision to pull the plug on that whole project. But to me, I mean, like, I would just leave it. Like, if that's the way that they want to brand themselves, then it's just more eyes on the WWE. So I don't really understand what the big problem is. But again, if I have any updates for that going forward, I will let you know. But I just saw those numbers, I thought that was insane.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I appreciate that. Let us know any updates when you get those.
Yeah. And if we want to fast forward to tonight, there's actually a pay-per-view on tonight, Impact's Hard to Kill, which is easily one of their biggest pay-per-views per year. It's one of the ones that I look forward to every year anyway. And I actually got to speak to the Impact World Champion, Rich Swann, this week because he is in a pretty big match this week with Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers, with him alongside Chris Sabin. And I think this match is there's so much built up to it. When I was talking to Rich Swann, he was saying how he wants to take his division back and he wants to be the top dog. And he doesn't really like the fact that there's another brand infiltrating Impact's roster. So I think with all of the emotions that are pent up going into this match, it should be definitely one to watch. Another one that's on the card are the Knockouts Tag Team Championships that Impact's decided to bring back. And they've been doing every week. They've been having this tournament to kind of narrow down who is going to be on the final card that will be happening tonight. So we're going to have Havoc and Nevaeh, who are a tag team, versus Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz. So
very cool.
Yeah, interesting.
Very cool. Yeah, and it's cool to see the AEW champion in this pay-per-view. So it should be a good show tonight.
Definitely. And like I said, what's better than having the Impact and the AEW brand come together? It's just going to make them stronger. The bigger these partnerships develop, I mean, good things will come with wrestling, hopefully, at least for the time being, because of the pandemic and whatnot. It's a good move, I would say.
Yes. Very cool.
Yeah. And other than that, I mean, we did hear this week that Dark Side of the Ring is continuing to film. And it actually looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting season. I did read that Stone Cold Steve Austin will be making an appearance on one of the episodes.
Yeah, that's going to be the season premiere about Brian Pillman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. I mean, it's something that I think a lot of wrestling fans look forward to. I know when I first started watching it, the first season, I couldn't get enough of it. One of them that obviously really stands out to me is the Chris Benoit story. Because that still keeps me up at night when I think about all the stuff that I've read and watched about it. So
yeah.
If there are any kind of stories that are hard hitting like that, we're going to be in for a good season.
Yeah, the Pillman episode should be really, really good with Austin's participation, but just the story about Brian. I mean, Brian was just so great and had demons galore. But I'm going to be looking forward to season 3. I have a big part of one of the episodes, and I look forward to being on Dark Side for the second season in a row. And it's just a great show, even if I wasn't on it. I mean, it's just an incredible job that Jason and Evan do. Jason Eisner, Evan Husney, the executive producers and creators of the show. And I think season 3 is going to be really good. I think there's more episodes this year. Mm-hmm. So there'll be a lot of interesting subjects covered. So we look forward to it. We really do.
Definitely. And maybe once your episode airs, whatever one you're going to appear on, you can tell us what that process was like being on.
Yeah, I mean, last year, I could tell you about last year's with Herb Abrams. I mean, I was on that episode, and that was fun. I mean, to reminisce about Herb and to, provide them a lot of the content for that episode from videos and audio, but being able to be interviewed and discuss Herb. And it was just a cool process. They're really cool people. There's not a lot of pressure, and it was a conversation, and I'm really proud of the work that I did on last season. And this season will be a little bit more controversial. I'm sworn to secrecy about it right now, but I think it's going to be an eye opener, and I think I look forward to getting involved and doing what I need to do with them, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Definitely. Yeah, I look forward to it. I don't know when exactly they're going to be. I don't think they've announced when the new season is going to air.
Spring is all I know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I figured as much because of the situation that we're all in the world.
Yes.
I don't think there's a firm date yet, but yeah, it should be.
Yeah, a lot of precautions because of COVID, but yeah, we're good.
Yeah. And speaking of some behind the scenes stuff, just one little note to mention about Impact. Their announcing team is changing because it's actually going to start at Hard to Kill tonight. So we have Josh Matthews, who is normally one of the commentators. He's actually going to be moving to a behind the scenes senior producer role, which is very big for him. And, when you read about it, and he's very excited about this new role, I think it's something that he's really always wanted to do, and it's going to challenge him in a different way. And Madison Rain, who was his co-commentary partner, hasn't announced what she's going to be doing yet, but she will tonight at Hard to Kill, which is going to be interesting to see what she does. She's had a long career in wrestling, so maybe she'll be going back to the ring part-time. Maybe she'll be moving on to other things. Who knows? And they will be replaced by D'Lo Brown and Matt Stryker, who will replace them on the play-by-play commentary team. So that should start tonight.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much, Alex. And Alex is being brought to us by slamwrestling.net, where she's a great writer, great journalist. She is busy all the time. All the time. But we appreciate you as always, Alex, and we'll talk to you next week.
That's right.
All righty. Take care now.
You too.
Have a good night. Alex Robertson, slamwrestling.net, and covering the news. A lot of comments are coming in right now on some of the topics we discussed. Of course, Dave Drayson, Brzezinski, the Sheik would be appalled with the lame fire gimmicks, like twos, flamethrowers, donkeys can't be far behind. A lot of people checking in with us right now. Producer Dominic is not with us today, as he is up in New York. I'm in Tennessee, and he has got there's a little bit of a birthday thing going on today with a good friend of ours, so he wouldn't be able to make it. In regard to some of the comments I'm seeing here on the Bobby Davis stuff, yes, Nick, Tim Hornbaker did a great obit on Bobby Davis for Slam Wrestling, and I spoke to Tim this week. Tim is a great historian, a great author, and was really, really close to Bobby, and kind of broke that news on Slam Wrestling that we had lost Bobby Davis. And Tim's book on Buddy Rogers, Master of the Ring, which is out on Crowbar Press right now, phenomenal book. And Tim is going to come on the show in the next couple of weeks to talk about the book that he wrote, the biography of Buddy Rogers, rather. So we really look forward to that. So I'm happy to see everybody making their comments here, and of course, a lot of the folks who watch this broadcast are old timers. Put it that way. Historians, fans of the old school pro wrestling, and of course, fans of some of the newer stuff as well. But today's show is going to focus on a couple of things. Don Laible has not joined us, which is unfortunate, but we'll carry on with what we were going to do, and that's to talk about Bobby Davis. And I mentioned in the beginning of the program how great Bobby was. To give you a little taste of what Bobby did when he managed Buddy Rogers, and back in the day. I'm going to share a video with you guys right now before I play my interview with him from 1991. This is around the time, Richard Newsom, you feel like an old timer. I feel like a dinosaur. Let's put it that way. I'm going to be 64 years old January 25th. So that's kind of nuts. But when I was a kid, when I was 7, I started watching wrestling, and Bobby was on TV. But even before that, he was managing the Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers. So I am going to play this interview now. I'm going to share the screen with you, and I'm going to put this interview on from Washington, D.C., when Bobby was managing Buddy Rogers. So bear with me a second as I make sure we got this right. And we are going to share the screen. And this is a rare promo with Bobby Davis talking about Buddy Rogers. So let's check it out.
A fella strutting down here in a silver coat. He's trying to tell us about a show that I'm sure you won't want to miss. It's Bobby Davis. Here he is. Hello, Bobby. How are you? Real good, man. It's a pleasure to see you. Bobby, I know you're back in the dressing room. You've got Dr. Jerry Graham, and his brother Eddie, who made a sensational debut here last week. And I assume that they're all set to go tonight again, right?
That's correct, sir. The world's two greatest wrestlers. I am very happy to say that they have met a number of these so-called, I call them drugstore cowboys. They're supposed to be champion wrestlers, and they're undefeated as of yet. They're the Universal Heavyweight Wrestling Tag Team Champions. And as a matter of fact, they're defending their title on the 28th of this month in New Haven, Connecticut.
That's Saturday night, June 28th in New Haven.
That's correct. They're going to destroy that Lewin kid and the Puerto Rican. Yeah, that's right. The Puerto Rican, I have to admit, is an excellent wrestler, but let's face it, there's no competition for the two greatest.
I got a letter tonight from a man up in New Haven. Let's see, Dr. Jerry Graham and Eddie wrestled Lewin, and I forget who the other person was, but it must have been a tremendous bout because this fan wrote in, apparently had been ready to say how Dr. Jerry Graham and Eddie had been beaten, but she admitted that they were the winners.
That's right. It was a rough, tough match, although, did I hear you say Dr. Jerry Graham and Eddie were beaten?
No, she said she had written that she thought she would be able to tell me they were beaten.
That's right.
She admitted that they weren't.
Never make that mistake. A lot of people try to guess ahead of time, but there's no way my two boys can be beaten. Under my supervision and with the background that they have, the wrestling background they have, they are unbeatable.
Well, Bobby, tell me one thing about yourself. Boy, the match gets going in here, and you get a pretty good going over yourself sometime. You train with Jerry and Eddie, too, to keep in shape?
I wrestle quite frequently, Ray, and I keep in top physical condition at all times. Sometimes it's necessary. When I see my boys are having a tough time, I go in and I try to do my best. And if it helps them out, great. And if I have to take a beating, well, that's my tough
part of the game. We'll see you later on. Bobby, nice to see you. At New Haven, Saturday night, right?
That's New Haven on the 28th.
28th,
That's right.
Saturday night.
Remember when you see my boys in there that they got to come out on top because we're in there to win, and that's the only reason we're in this position.
Okay, Bobby.
Okay,
Marty Stoll.
Just an incredible manager. But I'm going to play another clip here. This is actually when he managed Buddy Rogers. So he was in rare form in this one. So let's share the screen again. And I will set it up for you and take a listen to this one. It's Bobby Davis, Call Me Mr. Wrestling. So let's check it out.
Once again, and instead of having a wrestler for you this time.
Well, I heard there was no audio on that, so why don't we go back and put it back on? Sorry about it, everybody.
Where Buddy and I come from, it takes, first of all, well conditioning. It takes a lot of strength, a lot of power. It takes a lot of GUTS guts. And first and foremost, it takes a lot of brains. My champion has all of these factors. And when it comes to brains, he's far superior, far ahead of anything else in professional wrestling today.
Bobby, how have you helped him as his manager?
How have I helped? I am the brains behind the champion. When it comes to the champion, you know, they don't even call me Bobby Davis anymore. They call me Mr. Wrestling. If I ever turn off that spout, there'll be no more world champions because I have the greatest. I'm behind the one and only champion, Buddy Nature Boy Rogers. When I sit in that corner, it's for one reason and one reason only. That's to watch for his faults. But since I've been managing him, there have been no faults and nothing to look for.
Well, I guess that takes care of me. And there you have Bobby Davis, Mr.
Enough pressure for the guy to say I quit.
Well, no.
That was Bobby Davis, of course. I'm gonna. No producer here today, but what are you gonna do? I am going to now play an interview that I did with Bobby Davis. This is right after Buddy Rogers died. This is from Pro Wrestling Spotlight, and this is from July of 1992. So why don't we give that a listen right now? So just kind of sit back, relax, and check it out right here now.
Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
John.
how you doing tonight?
Hey, very good. Glad to be back. We've got plenty going on. Title changes, pay-per-view lineups, and above all, as you said, the passing of a bona fide wrestling legend.
Yes, indeed.
And before I get into the capsule, I'd like to invite all our listeners to have a pen and some paper ready because I have a very important phone number to give out. But without any ado, let's get right to the capsule. As you said earlier, tomorrow is Great American Bash Day for World Championship Wrestling, as Sting will be putting the promotion's heavyweight belt up for grabs against Big Van Vader in Albany, Georgia. Now, the NWA Tag Team Tournament will also crown a winning combination on a pay-per-view presentation beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern. In other WCW news, last Sunday in the promotion's hub city of Atlanta, 2 titles changed owners on the card presented in the Omni. Terry Gordy and Steve Williams stripped the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott, of the WCW World Tag belts, and on the same card, Brad Armstrong pinned Scotty Flamingo.
You get to hear a little news of the week with Don, who is supposed to be commentating with me today, but is not here. But anyway, back to it. It's really interesting stuff.
June 26 from Bam Bam Bigelow and Big Van Vader in Tokyo, Japan's Budokan Hall. One final note concerning the WCW Championship picture, Dick Slater and the Barbarian won the United States tag belts from the Freebirds 2 weeks back. But as of the end of this month, WCW Vice President Bill Watts will be eliminating the title. Okay, here's the phone number you're going to want to write down and save. 516-587-2861. Now, you want to call that for the up-to-the-minute details on the 3rd annual weekend of Champions Wrestling Convention, scheduled for August 29th and 30th in the Ramada Inn at LaGuardia Airport. Now, names already inked to appear are Bruno Sammartino, Killer Kowalski, Wendy Richter, Jerry Lawler, Eddie Gilbert, and Larry Zbyszko. Now, that's Sammartino and Zbyszko being reunited after many years. Now, to avoid waiting in long lines, as those of you who may have been there last year, you'll know at the Ramada, super tickets are on sale now. And turning to USWA news, well, Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett are the new owners of the United States Wrestling Association Tag Championship belts after dethroning the Moondogs in a cage match that saw veteran mat star Jackie Fargo serve as the referee for the Memphis action. And Richard Morton has entered the USWA ranks and has already been in pursuit of Eddie Gilbert's USWA Unified title. Well, a familiar face has returned to the World Wrestling Federation. Former heavyweight champion Bob Backlund, he's alive and well with the promotion as he saw ring time last week opposite Skinner in White Plains and Poughkeepsie. Now, the top 3 matches slated for the 6 p.m. August 29th SummerSlam show coming from London, England's Wembley Stadium are the Legion of Doom. They'll be taking on Money Incorporated. Bret Hart against Davey Boy Smith for the Intercontinental belt. And for the WWF crown, it will be Randy Savage taking on the Ultimate Warrior. Now, remember, SummerSlam will be shown in the States on a tape-delayed basis. And there also been talk this past week of Elegante possibly entering the Federation in the near future. Well, although it's been 2 weeks, the wrestling world still mourns the loss of one of its all-time greatest drawing cards, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. The 71-year-old native of Camden, New Jersey, succumbed to a stroke in Fort Lauderdale, Florida hospital on June 26th. Rogers captured the National Wrestling Alliance heavyweight title from Pat O'Connor in Chicago's Kaminsky Park in June of 1961 before 39,000 fans. Now, Buddy was also the recognized Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion, a title he held until May 17, 1963, when being defeated by Bruno Sammartino. Now, Rogers laced up his boots in 6 different decades. And to round out this week's edition of The Capsule, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight would like to wish the very best of luck to WFAN's Jody McDonald and Rich Mancuso, who will be signing off the station as of July 25th. Thanks, guys, for all you did to inform wrestling fans all over for quite some time. For the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, I'm Don Laible reporting Capsule Time 11:07.
Thank you very much, Don. We appreciate it very much, as we usually do here at the show, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, John.
Okay, Don Laible, who gives us our weekly news capsule. A lot of news in our 2-week hiatus taking place in the world of pro wrestling, but the biggest story, in my opinion, was, of course, the passing of one of the true legends of professional wrestling, Buddy Rogers. We're about to be joined here direct from California with another legendary figure of the wrestling business. I'm talking about Mr. Bobby Davis. And Bobby, of course, was Buddy Rogers' manager and managed a number of other top stars here on the East Coast. And we're going to take a couple calls for Bobby as well. If anybody calling into the show right now, please just direct your calls. If you had any remembrances of Buddy Rogers and anything you'd like to talk about regarding Buddy Rogers and, of course, Bobby Davis. Let's bring Bobby on right now. Bobby, are you with us?
Hi, John. How are you this evening?
How are you doing, sir?
Good. It's tough circumstances to visit with you, but I'm certainly glad to get the call.
Well, of course, you're a legendary figure yourself, and I can't say that I knew Buddy Rogers very well as far as friends go. I had the opportunity to do some business with him last year when I brought him into the Weekend of Champions Wrestling Fans Convention, and he was the light of the convention last year. He was just looked in tip-top shape, just had time for every one of the fans that he met and signed autographs and posed for pictures with. And it's just a tremendous, tremendous loss in the wrestling business right now. Can you share with us any remembrances of Buddy? As far as, you must have many, but
Oh, I can, of course. But first, he talked about that convention with great delight. He had an outstanding time, and I wish I could have been there with him, but circumstances prevented that. But he really enjoyed your convention, John, and was proud to be there.
And the news that just shocked everybody a couple of weeks ago was even more shocking, is the fact that Buddy looked in such great shape.
Well, it was staggering. Buddy and I were together in March at the Cauliflower Alley Club, an annual convention of retired boxers and wrestlers held in California. And at that time, oh, Lord, he looked like he was about 30 years old and tan and muscled and in fabulous condition, and really wore us all out. But as he always did, you know, he was an effervescent guy and loaded with energy, and this was such an unbelievable and untimely disappointment.
Where do you put Buddy Rogers in wrestling history? What place do you put him in wrestling history?
Well, as you know, I managed literally all the greats. I had the World Tag Team Champions, U.S. Heavyweight Champion. I had Gorilla Monsoon, Ricky Starr, the fabulous Ray Stevens and his brother Don Stevens. I had the Graham brothers, and Buddy was really the epitome of what a fine professional wrestling athlete should be. He beat everyone that I put in his path. There was literally no competition. Believe me, he had tough matches, but Buddy was a very unique person and a very unique wrestling machine, and there was never anyone before Buddy that would be his equal, and I'm sure there never will be.
What was your most memorable moment with Buddy?
Oh, gosh, there were so many, John. Personal memories, business memories. When I became Buddy's manager, I bought him from Jules Strongbow. And Buddy and I have been friends to this date for 41 years and had been friends for quite a number of years before I managed him, obviously. But when I got his contract, part of our verbal agreement, out of a great camaraderie and love, was that I was going to get him a shot at the world title. He was probably the most deserving contender of all time and proved that. But there were a lot of roadblocks and a lot of guys that, that didn't want him to have that opportunity. So I began managing Buddy, and there was a lot of maneuvering, a lot of finagling, and finally I worked out a deal with Vincent McMahon to be on his Bridgeport, Connecticut television for 22 straight weeks. That show, you might recall, went into 17 states.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally belittled Pat O'Connor so heavily and so severely that, as we understand, his poor wife finally quit going out for groceries, but in fact had him sent to the house. And so O'Connor finally had to answer the challenge, and he did, and ultimately stepped into the ring in Kaminsky Park with Buddy Rogers, and the rest is history.
That particular match, that 2 out of 3 Fall Classic, is on video tape, and I had the opportunity to see it. The first time I saw that tape, it was just goosebumps running up and down your spine, just how great that particular match was. And for that time, the amount of money that match drew was unsurpassed in pro wrestling. And, of course, today there are a lot of imitators to Buddy Rogers. There's one guy out there that is a legend himself, has developed himself into a legend, and that's Ric Flair. And, of course, he had gotten permission from Buddy Rogers to call himself the Nature Boy. And he also used a hold that Buddy was famous for, the figure 4 grapevine, which Flair called the figure 4 leg lock. But there was a lot of emulators to Buddy Rogers, but I guess it's just always going to be one true original Nature Boy.
Well, it's the greatest flattery, and I know that Buddy was complimented by it. And there are a lot of wrestlers today who use different facets of Buddy's technique. But as you say, there was only one Buddy. He was the greatest. There will never be another Nature Boy, and that's certainly not taking anything away from the current champions. But it's great that they do take the best from the best.
Yes, indeed. I tell you one thing, Bobby. I remember watching you myself back in the old days from Washington, D.C., with Ray Morgan as the play-by-play man and Friendly Bob Freed as the ring announcer. That was some classic times in pro wrestling. And fans, you just kind of disappeared from the scene yourself and just disappeared out of pro wrestling. And you were a controversial figure yourself, and we miss you.
You have a great memory. Those names sure bring back a lot of great memories of the Capitol Arena in Washington, D.C., and wrestling all up and down the coast. I sold out Madison Square Garden, of course, wrestling Pedro Martinez, who at the time was the Puerto Rican champion. And I managed 28 wrestlers, I guess, in all.
Wow.
So, there are a lot of great memories. And Buddy's right at the top of all of them. You know, I met Buddy very, very young in life, and we trained together. We shared hotel rooms and taxi cabs and girlfriends and training sessions and ideas, and played gin rummy on airplanes and had the flu together and so forth, you know. But there was never in my life a better friend. There was never in my life a person that I could count on more. And I really feel that if Buddy were here, he would say the same thing. We depended on each other. We worked hand in hand, heart in heart. And that's the way we got it done, brother. You know, I mean, it was tough out there, and you were fighting wrestlers and you were fighting promoters. And that teamwork, that camaraderie was what I think got us through, really.
Well, it certainly had sad time for pro wrestling. And Bobby, I want to thank you for taking the time, just reminiscing a little bit about the Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers, and we appreciate the time you've given us here tonight.
Well, I appreciate it. I wish Buddy were here now. I know unquestionably that if he were with us, John, those big baby blue eyes of his would be sparkling, and he'd have that big confident grin across his face that only Buddy could flash.
Wow. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting to listen to that stuff, and now they're both gone. Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, of course, passing in 1992, and one of the legends of wrestling management, Bobby Davis, who passed away on January the 6th. And one thing about Bobby, though, I mean, there's a lot of speculation about him. I mean, he was very well off. He invested early on the Wendy's franchises. So he had several Wendy's restaurants that he owned, and he was big in real estate, had a lot of properties. And one of my biggest disappointments was not being able to work out the scheduling to have him at the Weekend of Champions in 1991 with Buddy Rogers, because that would have been phenomenal. It's a sad time. I mean, I hark on Bobby Davis because he was so influential on the business. And thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. And he just meant a lot to me as a kid growing up watching wrestling. And of course, when I got to work a little bit with Buddy Rogers, that was a dream come true for me. And Buddy Rogers was the guy who was the very first WWF champion, as we all know. And Bruno Sammartino on May 17th, 1963, defeated Buddy Rogers in 47 seconds at the old Madison Square Garden to win the title. And Bruno held it for many years. He lost the title 50 years ago this coming Monday, January the 18th, 1971. And I'll never forget when I found out that Bruno lost the title. I had picked up the morning paper. Our local paper in the New York, Long Island area was Newsday, which is still in existence. And I'd always read the sports pages first. And even though it was January, I was hoping to see an article about the New York Mets. Never expecting to see anything on pro wrestling because they never covered it. And then when I opened up the newspaper, a 2-page spread on Bruno Sammartino losing the title to Ivan Koloff, the Russian Bear. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe that he lost the championship. And it was a sad day. Bruno was my hero. But the title reign had come to an end. The matches were not filmed or videotaped back in the day, but there's a gentleman named Rocky Raymond who is up in the New England area, and he would go to the matches as a fan, and he'd bring his 8mm camera, and he filmed some matches. And one of the matches he filmed was this incredible historic match between Bruno Sammartino and Ivan Koloff the night Bruno won. Now, Rocky had made a lot of these videos available on DVDs because he taped a lot of matches back in the day. I started taping them in 1973, but Rocky preceded me by a few years, and he taped them for many, many years. But what he did was he put commentary on it, and he was a pretty interesting commentator, very good actually. And so I'm going to play for you now that video that exists of Bruno Sammartino losing the title to Ivan Koloff. And this is from Madison Square Garden on January the 18th, 1971. So I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to make sure I put the sound on this time. So I'll share the audio. I'll pull this up. We will share it. And let's get this started for you. So it's very, very rare stuff. Bruno Sammartino losing the title to Ivan Koloff. I don't know how many of you have ever seen this before, but this is historic stuff.
January 18th, 1971, the living legend, Bruno Sammartino, against the Russian Bear, Ivan Koloff. This is the great classic. This is the greatest match of all time, ever. It wasn't WrestleMania back in the day. It was 1971. Koloff with a side headlock now. Shoulder tackle into Sammartino. Drop down by Sammartino. Big back body drop. And a lateral press by Sammartino. Koloff kicks out now, and Sammartino gets scooped up by the Russian Bear. Kick out by Sammartino. Sammartino with a big arm drag on Koloff. A second arm drag by the living legend. Head scissors by Koloff and a kick out by Sammartino. Leg dive by Sammartino, kick out by Koloff. into a monkey flip now. Sammartino reeling. Unbelievable action. This is the greatest match of all time. No WrestleMania. No one can put the match together like Sammartino and Koloff. Big arm bar by the living legend, Ivan Koloff, 275 pounds. Look at the size of this Russian bear. And Bruno Sammartino, 265 pounds himself, in control of the match. With an arm bar on the Russian bear, Ivan Koloff, managed by Captain Luabano, as the Russian bear goes behind Sammartino. And our referee looks on very closely for this Worldwide Wrestling Federation Championship match. January 18th, 1971. Can you believe it? A test of strength back and forth. The Russian bear, Sammartino. Koloff in control right now. As he's got the arms of Sammartino behind him now. And Koloff controlling the match. Bruno Sammartino, the living legend, loved by all the fans here in New York. They're going back and forth now. Ivan Koloff, Bruno Sammartino, in one of the greatest matches of all time. Koloff now putting pressure down on Sammartino. Sammartino trying to turn it around on the big Russian bear. And Sammartino inching his way around, trying to get behind the big Russian. And Sammartino turns it around. And the Russian bear now going for the ropes now. And the referee will break it up. Sammartino, Ivan Koloff. Worldwide Wrestling Federation Championship match here in the Big Apple. As you can see the size of Ivan Koloff. Unbelievable. And Bruno Sammartino tied up again. Collar and elbow. Side headlock by the Russian bear. Bruno with a left to the midsection and a right as he takes control with a side headlock. Koloff shoots him in. One shoulder tackle now. Sammartino hip toss by Koloff. Koloff for a lateral press. Sammartino kicks out. Whips him into that corner buckle. And Bruno going in now. Side headlock by Koloff. Shoots him in. Drop toe hold by Bruno Sammartino. And the crowd going crazy here in New York. Sammartino, oh, he rams that knee down into that canvas. Sammartino working the leg of the big Russian bear, Ivan Koloff. And again, Sammartino driving it down into the mat now, trying to weaken the leg of the big Russian bear, but Koloff comes back with a chokehold on Sammartino. And the referee trying to break it up as Koloff puts some heavy boots down into the chest of Sammartino. As he rams him into that corner buckle, Sammartino down. The Russian bear, brutal. And he got Sammartino now by the hair on his head. Big boot to the back of the head of Sammartino. Ivan Koloff, the Russian bear, crashing down with a smashing forearm. And a third one now. Bruno Sammartino in the corner. And this 310-pound Russian bear slamming down with some heavy blows on the living legend. Koloff. Sammartino in the corner. Koloff lays a big boot now into the midsection. And a second one now. Sammartino looking to be weakened by the Russian bear, Ivan Koloff. Koloff hairing him up. Can Sammartino take these heavy blows? He seems to be weakening in the middle of the ring, trying to get his composure. Sammartino, he's like a stocky linebacker. Here he comes with that big comeback. Big right hand as he whips him into the ropes. Now Koloff. Oh, Sammartino buries the boot. He buried that heavy boot into the midsection of the Russian bear. He whips him into those ropes now. Sammartino. Oh, big power slam. Lateral press by Sammartino. The momentum starting to change now. Sammartino with the reverse headlock now on Ivan Koloff. He's wrenching down on him, keeping the pressure on Koloff. Too close to the ropes now as the referee Nick Cole. Sammartino got Koloff weakened. Big shot to the midsection. Another right hand to the side of the head of Koloff. Sammartino now. Big boom. Another right hand and Koloff sent reeling. Now with a lateral press. Just a 1 count now as the Russian Bear kicks out Sammartino. Sammartino now with a reverse headlock now on the Russian Bear. He's starting to cinch it up. He's starting to work on that head now, trying to weaken that big shoulders and trapeze muscle of the Russian Bear. And Koloff looks to be out on his feet. Lateral press. Just a 2 count now on that Russian Bear. Unbelievable strength. Scoops the leg of Sammartino, kick out. Sammartino kicks out again. Leg dive again. Sammartino comes up with an arm bar. Ivan Koloff with a heavy boot. Trying to shake it off. It's Koloff putting the boost to Sammartino. Big whip into the corner. It's Koloff. The referee just went down. He got caught. Got caught by Koloff. Koloff whipped in that corner buckle now. Sammartino running in. He ran into that brick wall. The big knee of Koloff. Koloff now with a big scoop slam. Oh! He bounced off that mat. Koloff going up to that top rope now. He's up against the top. Oh, down with that big Russian leg drop across Sammartino. No! Oh, you can hear a pin drop. First time ever. We got a new champion. Sammartino pinned in New York City. I can't believe my eyes. The crowd. You can hear a pin drop. Koloff beat the Abruzzi Strongman. The new champion, Ivan Koloff. They better get him out of the building. They're going to riot. They're going to riot. Get him out of here, Koloff. Square Garden, January.
That's history there. 50 years ago on Monday night, Bruno Sammartino dropping the World's Championship to Ivan Koloff, which stunned everybody. As Rocky said, you could hear a pin drop. That was the way the newspapers reported it. Yes, there's been several comments. That's where I found it. I found it on YouTube. I found this match on YouTube, and if you ever want to check it out again, just put Koloff versus Sammartino 1971, and you'll be able to see it. Speaking of YouTube, I put up the Q&A, the full Q&A from the 1992 Weekend of Champions. It's now up there on the Matt Memories, John Arisi's Matt Memories channel on YouTube. A lot more stuff to come up there. It's just melancholy a little bit to, 50 years later, Bruno loses the title, man. But it's always a pleasure to be with everybody each and every week here. I have an announcement to make, a partnership that we're doing with the WrestlingUniverse.com. Everyone knows they've been advertising on our podcast, pwspod.com, for those of you who haven't checked it out. But I had taken probably 10,000 pictures over the course of my career at Madison Square Garden, Philadelphia, Boston, different states around the country. And a lot of people are always asking me, how can I get some of those pictures of Bruno with the belt, the pose shots, the action shots, Andre the Giant, and I'm making those available for the very first time. Stay tuned. You'll hear about it on the podcast. You'll hear about it here. But at the WrestlingUniverse.com, we are going to put up some of my favorite pictures of those legends from the 70s. And I also have some pictures from later on, but we're going to start off with the Brunos, Chief Jay Strongbow, Bruiser Brody, Freddie Blassie, Spiro Sarion, Grand Wizard, Captain Lou Albano, and some of the Valiant Brothers, some of the biggest stars of the 70s. And you'll be able to get glossy 8x10s with certificates of authenticity. They're going to be done direct from the negatives, and everyone will get a signed certificate of authenticity with these pictures. I'll let you know when they're available, and it's just some really good classic historic wrestling stuff. I know we have a small audience here each and every week, so I hope that I'm providing a service for you to talk about some of these old days. We'll continue to do that as long as people watch it, and we will be back for more of this. And one thing I do want to address, I mean, I've gotten a few complaints from some people. Well, why don't, you're not on every single week? I mean, I explained to everyone, I was traveling last week. I mean, there's going to be situations that occur that I can't do it every single Saturday, but I will try to give you more of a notice so you don't just log on a Saturday and expect to see the show when it's not there. So I will try to get more and more cognizant, especially when I can't do a show. Jeff, what is the favorite match I saw back in the day? To be honest with you, this comes from Jeff Flanagan. Thank you, Jeff, for the question. The favorite match for me had to be Spiros Arion against Bruno Sammartino, the series they had in 1975, because Spiros Arion was one of my favorites. He was just a great athlete, and Bruno, of course. And when Arion turned heel and went against Bruno Sammartino in the Classic 3 series, or maybe four matches at Madison Square Garden, where they actually had to use the overflow and put it on the Felt Forum closed circuit because they couldn't fit everybody in the building. Those were my favorite matches. Freddie Blassie, his matches with Pedro Morales were favorites of mine back in the day. Anything Blassie did was always good, but those are the ones that stand out in my mind as far as my favorites. Bruno versus Arion, Blassie versus Morales from back in the early 70s. Without any other questions, we're going to wrap it up for today. I appreciate everyone joining us as you do. I have a really cool bunch of people here. All right, let's see. Couple more questions. All right, so ask some questions. We have some time. If you want to ask some questions, let's take a few of them. Adam Harris, did you ever get hassled for having a video camera? How many people had video cameras? These were not even video cameras. These were, I'll get to the Russo question in a second here. But I had an 8mm film camera, and no one stopped you. There was nothing on the ticket that said you couldn't film it. These were not televised at that point. So I'd show up with my regular camera, of course. And then for Christmas, I asked for an 8mm camera so I could film the matches. And there you go. I was able to get there. No one ever stopped me. I had the cameras there. And there was very few people with 8mm cameras. I mean, that's why you never see any footage of it. Rocky Raymond was an exception. I mean, and I don't even know how he got all of that. He must have brought 3 or 4 reels together and spliced them together, because each one of those little reels, they were only good for 3.5 minutes. So here's a good one. What's in the egg? Yeah, if you're listening to the podcast, you'll know what's in the egg. Don, I can't pronounce your last name. Ever think about bringing Russo on? I heard an interview you did a couple years ago on his show. Maybe you can have him on yours. I'm not adverse to bringing Vince on. Vince had been publicly saying that he was going to be retiring from wrestling when he turned 60, which is on January the 24th of this year. I know that because my birthday is January 25th. We're a day apart. But I have a feeling Vince is going to hang out and still continue to do his podcasting and his Twitter feeds and his Twitch and all the other platforms. I'm certainly not adverse to having Russo on this program if he ever wanted to come on the show. So there's the question. How many Madison Square Gardens have there been? I believe there have been 3 totally. The one, the old Garden, shut down in 1966, and that's the old Garden was where Bruno won the title. Bruno lost the title in what they call the new Madison Square Garden, which opened up right around 66, 67 there. Well, Richard, your birthday's next Saturday. Very, very cool. Happy birthday, Richard. In the UK, Nick Tardo, the Valiant Brothers were the best. Yes, they were. They were actually to this day, my very favorite tag team, the original Valiant Brothers, Handsome Jimmy, Luscious Johnny, with the captain, Lou Albano, at their side. There was nothing like the Valiant Brothers, and I got so many shots of them from the matches. And let's see. But anyway, the Valiants were just incredible. My favorites. I actually tried to bring a reunion together in that 1992 convention. I wanted them both there. But Jimmy agreed, but then Johnny said no. And Albano was there too. Johnny was at the time leveraging to try to get back in the WWF, and anyone with the WWF certainly being at one of my events would be not a good thing for them. Rich Mancuso. Probably less than Russo. I would have Mancuso on, but I'm open to anything. And I heard Rich is back covering wrestling again. Let's see if we have any other questions here. Hulk Hogan. If I could get Hulk Hogan to do this show, I'd probably pay everybody out there $5 to watch it. How's that? But Hulk Hogan would never do my show. I doubt it very, very seriously. It's not a big enough platform for him, and he's still affiliated with the WWF, and there's still a little bit of when you mention John Arezzi to people who were there years ago to the WWF, it's not really a name that they like very much. You'll read more about that in my book, which is coming out April the 6th. And we're also, what we're doing right now with the publisher, we are going to be getting copies of the book very, very soon. It went to press now. We're going to be getting reviewer copies out, but I am going to make available signed and numbered copies to everybody. And as soon as I get the information on when that's going to start, before April 6th, and then everything will be mailed out April 6th, we'll let you know. Watch it. Documentary Johnny V on YouTube. I didn't know there was one. I'd love to see that. Power Twins again? Can everyone stand in Power Twins? I'd love to have the boys back. Anytime they want to come on the show, great. Meltzer. I've tried, and he said he would do it. We've gone back and forth for several months, and then he couldn't do it on a Saturday, can't do it. He can only do it on a Friday, and I said I'd do a special show for him. And the last I reached out, you get tired of pursuing somebody because he said over and over again that he'd love to do the show, but he is not committed to do it. So I am the door is always open for Dave Meltzer. I respect Dave. Dave and I were very tight in the 90s. We covered a lot of stories, him in The Observer and me on Pro Wrestling Spotlight. He was an ally. We'd compare notes each and every week. Any pictures of the Rosati sisters? No, I don't, Benny. I do not have any pictures of the Rosati sisters. Do you have any that you could provide for us? That would be pretty cool. Bring on Brian, the great Brian Last. I'd love to bring Brian on, but Brian doesn't is not interested in coming on. I had Brian on, I think one of the first shows here, and he was on the telephone, but I'd love to bring Brian on. Brian has another open invitation to come on this show and to talk wrestling with us. Let's see. Last Madison Square Garden show I attended. Wow. For wrestling, that had to be, I know when it was. It was it was right around the time the Attitude Era. It was the night that Vince McMahon got the stunner for the very first time from Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that's when Mick Foley came out as Cactus Jack. That was the last Garden show that I went to, and that was a great one. Or maybe there may have been I went to a Royal Rumble too when Taz debuted, so I went to that one. So I've gone to several, but I haven't got any probably in 15 years or so. I would think at least 15 years. Corny would be great. I'd love Jim Cornette to come on the show, but he ain't coming on. He won't come on. I'm not even going to ask him. Jim doesn't do anything that he doesn't want to do, and he just is content doing his podcasting with Brian And that was thanks September 22nd, 1997. I was there. Yeah, I was there for that. And then, of course, the Royal Rumble after that with Taz was a few years later. And I think I took my nephew to WrestleMania 20, which was that was wrestling, whatever the date was, WrestleMania 20. I was there with my nephew then. Royal Rumble 2000, yes, Triple H versus Cactus Jack on that show. Yes, outstanding stuff. Yeah, I kind of after the Attitude Era started to wane a little bit, and I just kind of phased out, and I moved to Nashville, Tennessee in 2000. So that was a major part of me not watching wrestling anymore and going to shows. I mean, I left for Tennessee, which is I'm still here 21 years later. But I've come back more of a historian than anything else these days, and I'm really looking forward to being able to say that my book is out, and then you'll find out a lot of inside stories about my career, not only in pro wrestling, but if you're a country music enthusiast, I kind of tear the curtain down on the country music business, talk about my 20 plus year run in country music, and also my history with the New York Mets. I mean, because I worked for the New York Mets as well back in the day. And so, I mean, I was recently approached by a producer about the possibility of a documentary on me because of the lives that I've touched, the people I've helped, the people I managed in country music, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight show, the conventions, the AAA stuff. So, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. All I could say is that I am enjoying everything that I'm doing right now when it comes to wrestling. I love going back 30 years and doing the podcast. We taped a great episode today. It's going to drop tomorrow. I mean, with Cactus Jack in the studio with Killer Kowalski. It was just a classic show, and we were talking about the hot oil wrestling that Cactus did, and I found the magazine with the pictures from Richard Nieves in it. So I'm going to post these on the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Then and Now podcast and radio show group on Facebook. I'm going to put these pictures up so everyone can see Cactus Jack in the hot oil wrestling world. So I think you're gonna have fun. Let me just see if I could find it real fast. Here we go. Check these bad boys out. There's Cactus with some of the hot oil ladies, and there's more over here. Let's do this. There's the camera here. But yeah, you'll see Mick Foley and probably in a way you've never seen him before. I'm posting these on the Facebook site. So another question. We'll take questions for a little bit longer. I mean, you know, they're not throwing us off the air over here. Does Heyman think he's too big to have an interview with you, or could it be WWF office not wanting him to get involved? That's $1 million question. I'd love to have Paul on. He's certainly with WWE, big part of it, and he's got an open invitation here. I had a friend of mine who was a good friend of Paulie's try to reach out. He hasn't heard anything back from him. But Paul would be a fascinating guest for me to talk to these days. It would be very, very fascinating. Yes, Dan, the November 18th episode with Woman. And then next week, not just this week's show, but next week's show when Woman is in the studio back then with John Tolis and Herb Abrams. So if you haven't checked out the radio show, pwspod.com, check it out. There's some great content there. And I was discussing with Brian today that these are the fun days with Pro Wrestling Spotlight. I mean, from the WNYG debut and all the craziness in the studio with Sonny Blaze and the Power Twins and the G-Man and everyone else. And then GBB had a bigger signal. I was promoting more. We had phenomenal guests, the big names. So we're heading into the sweet spot of the fun. And then I meet Russo in the middle of 1991, and things kind of take a change. He gets involved with the show. And then when we move into, and then the scandals are breaking, the steroid scandals. And then in 1992, the show takes a dramatic turn to seriousness in a lot of ways with the sex scandal stuff and Russo and I parting ways and all of that public ugliness that took place. So for those of you who you're in for a lot, especially those who have never heard the stories before. I mean, I'm looking in back of me. There are boxes of cassette tapes that are in chronological order that we still have. Literally, we're still in 1990. We have all of 91. We have all of 92. We have 93. We have 94. And the show goes off the air in 95. So there's a lot of content remaining. There's a lot of content remaining, and you're going to hear from the biggest names in the business who didn't work for the WWF at the time. And then when they leave the WWF, they'd come on the show. So you love the AP. I like the AP news segments as well. I mean, it gives you kind of a sense of what was going on in the world back then, the Iraqi war and all of that stuff. It says Sonny Blaze question 2 here. Sonny Blaze has never come on. I have not invited Sonny on yet. The falling out with Sonny, if there was a documented falling out, there really wasn't. It was because of what I was covering, and he was involved with the WWF as an enhancement talent. And when I started covering some of the ugliness there, and Sonny was with the organization, that caused the rift, if you will. But Sonny's down in Florida, and people come in and out of your lives, and he's just one of those guys that I don't think that there's a chance of a reconciliation. If there wasn't never an official breakup of the friendship or anything, but and the George from Lindenhurst stuff. I love George from Lindenhurst calls. They're very, very cool. And if you're going to be listening to the podcast, we start to get George from Lindenhurst imposters coming up soon. So it's just always hilarious to hear George, and what an innocent young kid he was. He's another one of people that bring him on. We've reached out, we found him, but he has no interest in bringing himself on the show now. Let's just remember George the way he was and how he put pleasure in our lives by listening to his calls. I mean, he was amazing, as one of the Hall of Famers, certainly, of listeners of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. But I thank you all for your questions. It's 6:12 p.m. I am going to end the broadcast for now, and I will be speaking to you guys real soon. Don't forget, new podcast drops tomorrow. It's a classic one. Kowalski, Cactus in the studio, some crazy phone calls. So let's see here. Let's take one more. I hate to. Freddie Elfenboy. I never thought of using the Stern. I did use the Stern show. Yeah. I actually, for Weekend of Champions in 1993, Fred set up an appearance, and I brought to the Howard Stern show, and I have a cassette of it. I don't know if I get in trouble to play it, but I brought Medusa and Malaya Osaka to the Howard Stern show. And that was the morning of Weekend of Champions 1993. And I have that cassette. So if I can play that without getting in trouble, I'd love to play it for you guys someday. All right. Thanks again, everybody. It's a pleasure to speak to you all and see all your comments. Thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, when we talk more wrestling, this is John Arezzi. Have a great weekend, everybody.